Hi, all. Happy New Year. Eric Nishinsky here on the 2nd of January, Monday night. This is a special plug for all of you to maximize your 2017 investing strategies and positioning. We've got a pretty good beat on the gold and silver arena, and we'll continue to do our best in that area as well as pick stocks. I do believe that 2017 will see a much more robust gold and silver market than we saw in the second half of this year. And in any event, it's always best to have complementary advisors and analysis. In my experience as a professional, as my own investor in all different areas of life, the investment newsletter business is a very unique animal, and there are a lot of just crappy writers and analysts and a lot of people with access to grind and ulterior motives and everything else. Some are just plain well-intentioned, but they're bad. So I wanted to share really just one idea with you all, one resource that's been very, very profitable for me. And I was thinking about how long I've been a subscriber to the Weber Global Opportunities newsletter, but I believe it's been at least a decade. And because I do know that going into the 08-09 crash, I was already well immersed into Chris Weber's newsletter, and he was one of the few guys that I know of that predicted the crash, got 100%. He was very clear, 100% out of equities, period. That was about 6 months prior to the crash in the market. And he's had some other amazing calls. And so what I know about Chris Weber is that he started investing as a teenager in the 1970s. And he was a student of Murray Rothbard and some other very, very interesting Austrian economics students. And he had a very interesting perspective. And he also was involved when gold saw that very, very powerful bull market throughout the 70s from $35 in the early 1970s to $850 an ounce, which he capitalized on and then sold his positions in the precious metals in the euphoria phase. And basically, he's never worked a day in his life. He's the only person that I know of, and I do believe it, and I believe him, even though there's no way to verify it, that he has made a living and become extremely wealthy. I can just tell he's very wealthy by what he does and how he writes and his calls that he's made. But he's become extremely wealthy, primarily based on his investments. And he obviously has a good income from his writing as well over the years. But I think that the bulk of his wealth has come from his investment returns. And a couple of things that really have struck me about Chris's calls, and these are documented. They're absolutely documented in his historical writings and just from my personal experience. The only one I didn't see hands-on was that in December of 2000, going into 2001, he called the bottom of the 19-year bear market in gold and he put a significant amount of his assets in physical gold and silver. I believe he also went into the mining stocks at that time. That's at the bottom. That was at the turn. And so he has a very interesting perspective when it comes to what gold is doing now, because most of his purchases were made at $300 an ounce. So, when you're still up 4 times your money, even though it's already been 15, 16 years since then, it's a little different than if you jumped into this space in 2011 and you're down 40%. But in any event, he called that market. He called the crash in 2009. He called a re-entry into the stock market in early 2010, I believe it was, very early on in the rally. 2015, late last year, he called getting into the gold miners. He had held off on that and focused just on the metals for years. Said to go back into the miners. 2016, he's called a bottom to interest rates and the end of the what is it now, 36-year-old bond bull market in July. He was one of the reasons why I bought TBT, and he called it to the day. He's got a knack for that. And so what has happened with his calls for me, and we do have a little bit of overlap, not a lot. It's TBT. He also owns GGN, the Gabelli ETF with a really good dividend that we own as well. But besides that, Chris is fantastic if you're very, very wealthy, or if you're not, but especially if you're a very wealthy subscriber. Chris thinks about basically making sure that he doesn't lose money first and foremost. And his positioning in terms of portfolio allocation may just be in mostly cash and precious metals. He's had that position on and off before. And he does look at cash as an investment position. And sometimes he moves money into undervalued currencies versus the US dollar, or he'll buy the euro, or, it's a global perspective that is just very, very helpful. And I can tell you that if I had a mentor in the business, I don't know him well personally. I'm hoping he's going to come and talk a little bit at our conference in March. But if I didn't have if I had anybody to name in terms of somebody that I read and it confirms my worldview when I'm a little bit unsure of what's going to happen next, Chris would be in the top 3. And he's helped me quite a bit in terms of just making the calls that I make and the positioning that I make. He's helped me more than any other resource, quite frankly. And I have a lot of confidence in his ideas and his picks. And he's allowed for us, I requested my subscribers to be able, he doesn't offer discounts, but he offered us a 10% discount to his newsletter. The link you're going to see below, if you use that link, you get the 10% discount on either the quarterly or the annual subscription. I would suggest that you guys try them out at least for a quarter, but you should just buy the year, save the money. And I've never stopped being a subscriber in over a decade, and there's no other newsletter I can say that about. He is just a resource that I need to have and want to have, and will never, not pay that small, modest fee for the, really, I mean, who knows how much money he's made or saved me over the years, but I think it's a lot. I think it's a tremendous amount of money from his advice. So highly suggest you get involved and become a subscriber to Weber Global as you complement your ideas that you get from the Gold Investment Letter in 2017. Happy New Year, everyone.